You're sitting in a theater, and the movie is terrible. You know it 20 minutes in. The plot is sludge, the jokes fall flat, and the seat is somehow both too hard and too cold. But you stay. You sit there for 90 more minutes, arms crossed, quietly miserable. And if you're entirely honest, there is only one reason why. You already paid $15 for the ticket. The money is gone. You will never get it back, whether you stay or leave. So you choose to lose an additional 90 minutes of your time simply because you can't recover the cash. Look at this timeline. The rational rule of decision-making is clean. Past costs should be severed entirely from your future choices. Only future costs and future benefits should dictate what you do next. The past is paid and owes you nothing. But human logic rarely works that smoothly. That hidden pull keeping you in the theater has a name. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. You make decisions based on what you've already put in, instead of what you'll actually get out. Once you see this trap, you realize it goes far beyond movie tickets. This error in human reasoning dictates choices that cost careers, sink businesses, and drain years of our lives. The math of a $15 ticket applies exactly the same way to massive government budgets and billion-dollar corporations. It is a recognized economic hazard. Take the Concorde. Long before this supersonic jet ever flew, the British and French governments knew the economics meant it would never make a profit. But they kept pouring money in, year after year, because they had already spent so much. Stopping felt like an admission of failure on a massive national scale. Economists actually call this trap the Concorde fallacy. Or consider the Boeing 737 MAX. Faced with a flawed design, the company kept patching and refurbishing the existing plane instead of starting fresh. 2 of those aircraft crashed, killing hundreds of people. When the cost of admitting we should start over feels too high for our ego to handle, the mind will invent almost any reason to keep flying the broken plane. To understand why we do this, we have to look at the machinery running the fallacy. It runs on a backward-facing brain, and the first engine powering it is waste avoidance. In the 1980s, psychologists ran a study at an Ohio University theater. As this chart shows, they randomized the prices of season tickets. One group paid $15, another $13, and the third paid a deeply discounted $8. Same seats, same plays, identical value. Over the next 6 months, the group that paid the full $15 attended the most plays. The deeper the discount, the more plays people skipped. The full-price group dragged themselves out of the house on freezing cold nights when they'd rather have stayed home, all because that $15 investment was sitting there, unused. They weren't optimizing for a good evening. They were driven by a deep, physical dread of letting a paid asset go to waste. But there is a second engine, and it hides inside your sense of identity. Psychologists call it escalation of commitment. When a choice starts going wrong, pulling out means admitting you made a mistake, so you double down to appear consistent. A study at the University of Waterloo shows how far this self-defense mechanism will go. Researchers asked people to run a simulated medical experiment that required killing monkeys for a cure. Partway through, participants were offered a cheaper alternative that saved lives. Many rejected the better path, choosing to kill more monkeys just to finish their original experiment. The darkest finding was the rationalization. The more time participants had sunk into that first path, the more they rated continuing it as morally acceptable. This bias reached past flawed logic and into the participants' values, quietly rewriting them. Their sense of right and wrong shifted simply to shield the ego from the pain of a past mistake. It is tempting to write this off as a flaw in modern consumer brains, but a University of Minnesota study proved this behavior goes much deeper. They ran a similar economic game on rats, and the rodents exhibited the exact same sunk cost bias when waiting for rewards. We can trace this in this diagram of the brain. The glowing area is the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. It tracks your progress toward a goal and pushes you to stay committed. Here is the biological paradox. The exact neural hardware that makes you persistent, the wiring that helps you finish what you start, is the very same machinery that traps you on a sinking ship. Your stubbornness and your self-sabotage share a circuit. But we have a loophole.
In 2021, a study put people in a sunk cost waiting task. Halfway through, they gave participants a tiny distraction, a simple button to click. When their attention shifted to that small task, the sunk cost bias vanished completely. The time they had already spent suddenly had zero effect on whether they quit. The bias doesn't live in the cold numbers, and we aren't doomed by our biology. It only survives when your attention is actively pointed backward, marinating in your own regret. Because the trap relies entirely on looking backward, dismantling it requires forcefully shifting your attention forward. Start by listening to your own language. Any justification pointing to the past is a warning siren. Phrases like, "I've come too far to stop now," or "I can't let that time go to waste," mean you've found the fallacy with its hand in your pocket. When you hear that, use what researcher Veronica Tate calls the crystallizing question. Would I still be making this choice if I hadn't already made that investment? If you wouldn't sign up for this job or this project today from scratch, the past dollars and months are not a reason to stay. They are just the price of finding out. Then pull the hidden costs into the light. Instead of calculating the past effort you will quote-unquote waste by quitting, calculate the future sleep, the drained energy, and the new opportunities you will definitely lose by staying. When you list those future costs, your mindset shifts. You stop seeing a bad project as a debt you are forced to pay off, and start seeing it as a future you have to protect. The money is gone. The years are gone. The effort is gone. None of it is coming back, and you owe the past nothing. Watch how these two ideas separate. Your brain confuses, "Look how much I've already put in," with, "Is this still the best path forward?" They are entirely different questions. Only the bright, forward-looking path actually matters. Staying committed to a bad decision isn't a sign of integrity. It is simply a more expensive way to keep being wrong. The ticket is already paid. You do not have to sit through the rest of the bad movie. Having the clarity to ask if what you started is still worth finishing, and the courage to walk away when the honest answer is no, is the most rational move you can make.